Welcome, all you happy people, to Cinematic Excrement. Today, we resume our journey through every movie that has won the Razzie for Worst Picture. In just a few moments. But first, I feel I should say a few words about some recent news. As I'm sure many of you are aware, the Golden Raspberry Award nominations for this year were recently announced. And initially, among the nominees was Ryan Kira Armstrong for the 2022 remake of Firestarter.
According to Razzie co-founder and mediocre author John Wilson, Armstrong received about 1,100 votes for the award, putting her in 5th place, and despite her age, they decided to go through with it. Sadly, it's not the first time these asshats felt comfortable bullying a child, as in previous years they've nominated Jake Lloyd and Macaulay Culkin. Punching down is nothing new for them. It's one thing if the target is an adult. They're grown, they're mature, they can handle it. And we've seen some of them handle it in hilarious fashion, like Halle Berry and Sandra Bullock. And reportedly, Tom Green.
I am still holding out hope that video footage of that exists.
Unlike the previous nominations of child actors, which occurred before the age of social media, the backlash was overwhelming, and clearly Wilson was not prepared for it. Initially, he tried to downplay it, stating it was perhaps somewhat justified but overblown, and encouraged people to lighten up and realize they were just trying to be funny.
Shockingly, this strategy did not work.
The day after the nominations, it seemed Wilson finally realized which way the wind was blowing and Armstrong's nomination was rescinded. And they promised to limit future nominees to people 18 or older. It's a step in the right direction, but nominating Armstrong in the first place was still an unbelievably shitty move, as was Wilson's initial condescending response to the backlash. And it's kinda pathetic that over 1,100 voting members of the Golden Raspberry Foundation were totally okay with bullying a child.
Then again, these are people who are willing to pay actual money for the privilege of voting for bad movies. If they were capable of exercising good judgment, they wouldn't be voting members in the first place.
And I know this isn't really the point, but what really baffles me about this whole thing is Armstrong was actually pretty good in Firestarter. The movie itself kinda sucked, but that wasn't her fault. Regardless of her age, this was not a performance worthy of a Razzie. And that makes Wilson's initial response, suggesting they were just trying to be funny, even more baffling. What exactly was the joke here? Tee-hee, we nominated a good actor for a Razzie? It doesn't make any goddamn sense. And even if she wasn't good, she's young and has time to improve. I didn't think Nico Parker was all that great in Dumbo, but in the first episode of The Last of Us? Wow, what a difference a few years makes, huh? So let's not kill a young actor's career for the sake of a quote-unquote joke, shall we?
I'm glad they rescinded the nomination, but it never should have come to that in the first place. And for the 1,100 Razzie voters who thought it would be funny to bully a 12-year-old girl, sit and spin. Now that we have that out of the way, the next stop on our Worst Picture journey takes us to the year 2015.
That year, we had yet another tie for Worst Picture. Josh Trank's Fantastic Four, often referred to as Fant4stic, and 50 Shades of Grey, often referred to as 50 Shades of Grey. The former was yet another cinematic misstep for Marvel's first family, possibly the biggest misstep to date, and yes, I'm including the Roger Corman version when I say that. The latter is based on the book of the same name, which began as a Twilight fanfiction with some BDSM mixed in and inexplicably turned into a worldwide phenomenon. Both movies are absolutely dreadful, but I do not think both deserve to win Worst Picture.
That honor should have gone to Fant4stic alone. You heard me. I'm picking Fantastic Four over 50 Shades of Grey, and I'll tell you why.
Please don't misunderstand. I hated 50 Shades. The book is terrible, the movie is terrible, E.L. James is terrible, it's all terrible. But I will say this in its favor. It understands its target audience, and for better or worse, it's giving them exactly what they paid to see. I can't say that about Fant4stic. I don't think Josh Trank had the slightest freaking clue what he was doing, and it shows. That movie was an absolute mess that did not satisfy its target audience, or, with few exceptions, anyone else. And that's why I consider it to be the lesser of the two. 50 Shades of Grey may be terrible, but it's doing what it's supposed to do for whom it's supposed to do it.
And that brings me to the topic of today's review. I'm not going to spend time taking a second look at Fant4stic because I pretty much said all I needed to say about that and every other Fantastic Four movie. And I don't really feel it's worth taking a second look at 50 Shades of Grey or its sequel 50 Shades Darker. But it occurred to me I never did a full Cinematic Excrement review of the final movie of the trilogy, 50 Shades Freed. And the reason for that is pretty simple. It's actually not terrible.
I'm as surprised as you, but it's true. 50 Shades Freed is not a terrible movie. It's not a good movie either, I assure you, it's still bad, but it's easily the best movie of the trilogy, and had the lowest box office, go figure. But why is it the best? Because unlike 50 Shades of Grey and 50 Shades Darker, 50 Shades Freed actually has a plot.
Honest to God, it has a plot. Not a very good plot, mind you, but a bad plot is better than no plot at all. Yes, the bar is that low.
For the record, I am looking at the unrated cut, though the differences between that and the theatrical cut are minor. 50 Shades Freed opens with Christian and Anna getting married, because the Twilight parallels weren't obvious enough. Unlike Twilight, the wedding doesn't last an ungodly amount of time. The honeymoon lasts longer than it needs to, however, and it begins with a very confusing line when Anna is taken to Christian's private jet.
You own this?
My initial reaction to that line was, God damn it, Anna, you've known this guy for how long and you're still surprised by how wealthy he is? But then it occurred to me, I don't actually know how long they've known each other. The movies don't really make it all that clear. But I figured with this franchise's rabid fan base, surely somebody has gone through the books and figured out the timeline by now. And sure enough, one Google search later, I had my answer. It's less than 3 months from the day they meet until the day they wed. I'm not kidding. So my reaction should be less goddammit Anna and more goddammit E.L. James. Edward and Bella waited longer to get married, for crying out loud.
And we see various locations in Europe and various shots of Anna's boobs, which leads to Christian lambasting his wife for sunbathing topless, even though she's hardly the only one doing so.
Christian, look around. There's nothing but boobs for as far as the eye can see.
Well, isn't that romantic? But just for the record, where is this?
And after the honeymoon, we see Anna at the publishing company signing only the best authors and being the best goddamn literary editor ever despite her total lack of experience because something self-insert fantasy. And wow, I forgot Tyler Hoechlin had a cameo in this.
The best Superman since Christopher Reeve. I don't care what anybody says.
And the whole gang takes a trip to Aspen where Christian's brother Elliot proposes to Anna's best friend Kate.
And they've known each other for less time than Christian and Anna. I give that one a year.
And there's a whole lot of f***ing because, as previously stated, 50 Shades knows exactly what its audience wants. So many sex scenes. 6 if my count is correct, although they're mostly very short. Small portions, many courses. It ain't doing much for me, as the sex Anna and Christian get up to is not all that sexy, but if it's doing it for you, more power to you.
But it's not all wine and roses, or whips and chains as it were, which brings us to our main plot.
If you recall 50 Shades Darker, which incidentally was the last episode I did before starting my Worst Picture project, Anna's former boss Jack Hyde, played by Eric Johnson, tried to get a little rapey and was promptly fired. Later, Christian was in a helicopter crash, and it's confirmed in 50 Shades Freed that Jack sabotaged the copter. Christian survived the crash with minimal injuries, but Jack is not done. He pays a visit to Grey Enterprises, which is at least the third name the company has had over the course of the trilogy, and somehow manages to get by security, steal some of Christian's personal files, and sets fire to the server room.
You would think all that money could buy decent security, but I guess not.
And there's a car chase that is not edited particularly well, but honestly I've seen worse. Christian ends up hiring private security for Anna, and if they're as good as his business security, Anna is screwed. And sure enough, Jack gets by the private security and breaks into Christian's penthouse apartment to pay Anna a little visit.
Okay, so just to recap, Jack can sabotage a helicopter, he's a master of disguise, he can hack into a server, he can build small incendiary devices, and he can break into a penthouse apartment without alerting the resident's private security. Is it me, or is Jack using cheat codes?
This ends up being about as anticlimactic as you might expect, and Jack is almost immediately taken down like a bitch and off to jail he goes. But someone makes his $500,000 bail, and as soon as he gets out, he decides to make things worse for himself by kidnapping Christian's sister and demanding Anna cough up $5 million. And apparently Jack has one of Anna's co-workers assisting him with the kidnapping, which seems a bit contrived.
Supposedly, Jack had sex with her and filmed it and is threatening to release the tape if she doesn't comply. Really? I mean, revenge porn is a terrible thing, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but I'm not sure I can buy that it would convince someone to be an accessory to kidnapping.
Also, Christian apparently learned about Anna's coworker being blackmailed a few days before the kidnapping and never said anything to his wife. What the fuck, man? You think that might have been useful information to her? Anyway, Anna decides to go through with Jack's demands without telling anyone, including Christian or her private security, which sounds incredibly stupid. But Anna is smart enough to hand the kidnappers someone else's phone, keeping her phone hidden so Christian can track her. So she can be smart when she wants to be.
And believe me, I hate that Christian's obsessive behavior is actually paying off here.
She also takes along a gun and shoots Jack in the leg? It's not super clear, but yeah, I'm going with leg.
And somehow that is not the end of this madness. Remember Kim Basinger's character Elena from the last movie? The older woman who basically groomed Christian? Well, get this.
Apparently her ex-husband, who we briefly run into early in the movie, was the one who made Jack's bail. He had about 30 seconds of screen time just for that plot point, which frankly was unnecessary. It's adding complexity to the plot purely for the sake of it. And that's not all.
It can get weirder.
We then find out Jack and Christian grew up in the same foster home. Christian was adopted by a wealthy family, Jack was not, and he's been jealous ever since. But Jack also went to Princeton on a scholarship and worked for several major publishing houses, so he seems to have done pretty well for himself. The insane jealousy seems kind of, well, insane. And conveniently, Christian has no memory of him when they were kids.
So let me make sure I have this straight. Anna went to work for the publishing company, which Christian did not own at the time. He bought it after she started working there. And her boss just happened to be Christian's sworn enemy. That is one hell of a coincidence. And it's not like Jack was showing any obvious signs of giving a shit about Christian until after he tried to get frisky with Anna and she kneed him in the groin. This cannot have been the plan when E.L. James was writing 50 Shades Darker.
Anyway, believe it or not, 50 Shades Freed also has a somewhat coherent and fairly simple B-plot. After all the sexy times and missing one of her birth control doses, Anna is pregnant.
Oh dear God, they're breeding.
When Christian finds out, he flips his shit because he is not ready to be a father. Thankfully, they do not mention abortion because, unlike Twilight, this franchise recognizes it is not mature enough to have that debate. But it does lead to Christian paying a visit to Elena the groomer, though you'll only see her on camera if you watch the unrated version.
And I'm honestly not sure why they bothered. She was in 2 blink-and-you-miss-it scenes and had no lines of dialogue. I think the character had more to do in the novel, but if they filmed any of that, those scenes did not make the cut.
Anna then flips her shit when she finds out Christian saw Elena, as well she should.
I thought you were better than that.
Why? Seriously, when has he demonstrated he's better than that?
And this is one of the rare moments when Anna demonstrates any sense of agency and is willing to tell Christian off and make her own damn decisions. She will yield to Christian 99% of the time, but she will make an exception for a baby and, judging by the last movie, a quinoa salad. Weird priorities, but okay.
And you said that I would choose this baby over you. And you know what? If I have to, I will.
You know, it would be very easy to cheer Anna on here because she's totally in the right and Christian is a cock, but the director has to go and undermine any gravitas this scene might have had by having Dakota walk around nearly naked the whole time. Call me crazy, but it's hard to see this as a poignant moment when we're basically watching Anna get dressed.
This is not to say any instance of nudity is automatically titillating. It is indeed possible, albeit difficult, to bare your soul while baring your ass. But this is not how it's done. There is no reason for Anna to have her tits out here, except it's 50 Shades and that's how they do. And it makes it almost impossible to take seriously what should be a powerful moment. Can this movie really not stop being horny for 5 seconds?
But Anna almost getting killed or worse by Jack causes Christian to grow the fuck up and reevaluate his life choices, and he says, fine, let's have a baby. In fact, let's have 2.
And it's a good thing Daddy's rich, because I suspect those kids are gonna need a whole lot of therapy if they ever accidentally discover the Red Room.
So yeah, that's the end of the 50 Shades trilogy. And like I said, this is easily the high point of the franchise. It's still not a good movie, and boy does it have its issues, most of which are expected. The dialogue is still clunky, the editing needed another pass. I don't know why they bothered to bring back Kim Basinger if she wasn't gonna do anything, and Dornan's performance is rough, which is a little surprising. I know he can do better, he's got a BAFTA nomination under his belt. Maybe he was just struggling with the American accent, I don't know.
In fact, would it have been so bad for him to speak with his normal accent? Yeah, Christian would have sounded out of place compared to the rest of his family, but then again, he is adopted. I think they could have made that work. But I guess that wouldn't have been true to E.L. James' vision or some such bullshit.
Also, the sex scenes are still not sexy. And it bothers me a little that they're still doing stuff in the Red Room after Christian admitted in the last movie that he's a sadist who gets off on hurting women who look like his mother. But after that revelation, he and Anna are still doing the BDSM thing.
And everybody's okay with this? Did I miss something?
Look, I don't mean to kink shame. If you and your partner are into BDSM and you know how to do it safely and respect each other's boundaries, by all means, have fun. But Christian has clearly demonstrated he is not mature enough to handle this. Hell, in this movie he demonstrates he's still not mature enough. After Anna does something that he disapproves of, he uses their sexy time to punish her by denying her an orgasm, and she rightly calls him out on it.
Anna, might I suggest a new safe word? Divorce.
But while 50 Shades Freed is still a bad movie, it does have its good points, or at least its less bad points. As previously stated, it has an actual plot. It's not the kind of plot that will win any awards, unless you count the Razzie for Worst Screenplay, which is the only Razzie it won, by the way. And the Jack Hyde character is totally OP, but at least it's a coherent plot that I could follow. And this is the closest Anastasia Steele comes to being a good character. She finally has some sense of self-worth. She exhibits moments of actual intelligence, and Dakota Johnson's performance was not half bad. And this is why I initially did not want to do a full review of the movie. It's bad, but it's not horrible, and I just didn't think it was worth the effort. But I don't like leaving things unfinished, and if I was ever going to give 50 Shades Freed the full treatment, now seemed like the time to do it. So there we go. I finally finished this damn trilogy, and we can all move on.
Speaking of moving on, next time we're looking at the year 2016, which means... oh no. I gotta talk about Dinesh D'Souza again. Well, until next time, I am the Smeghead, and I'm just gonna go start drinking now. Yeah, this is gonna hurt.
I ache for the touch of your lips, dear, but much more for the touch of your whips, dear. You can raise welts like nobody else as we dance to the masochism tango. Let our love be a flame, not an ember. Say it's me that you want to dismember. Blacken my eye, set fire to my tie as we dance to the masochism tango.
It's boobs in boobland.